The air in the military barracks was thick with a smell of stale coffee and unfulfilled dreams. Outside, the German winter bit with a relentless chill, but inside, the heat of 100 restless bodies offered little comfort. Private Mark Miller sat on the edge of his cot, a worn photograph clutched in his hand. Her smile was a beacon, a lighthouse in the endless ocean of his longing. He traced her face with a calloused thumb, a familiar ache settling in his chest. It had been months since he'd heard her laugh, felt her soft hand in his. Letters were slow, phone calls even slower, often crackling into silence before a word could truly be exchanged. Each day was a countdown, a struggle against the monotony and the gnawing worry that he might miss something vital back home. Tonight, however, was supposed to be different. Rumors had been swirling for weeks, whispered from bunk to bunk, finally confirmed by an official notice tacked to the mess hall bulletin board. Elvis Presley was coming. The king himself here in Germany, performing for the troops. A collective buzz had rippled through the base. Even the most hardened sergeants seemed to soften a little at the news. The name conjured images of flashy suits, swiveling hips, and a voice that could melt glaciers. For many, it was a slice of home, a tangible link to the vibrant world they'd left behind. For Mark, it was complicated. He appreciated the morale boost, but his mind kept drifting back to Sarah, wondering what she was doing, if she was okay, if she felt his absence as keenly as he felt hers. As the time for the show approached, the barrack emptied, men scrambling to get good spots in the makeshift auditorium. Mark eventually joined them, pulled along by the tide of anticipation. The hall was packed, sweat clinging to the walls, the air electric with expectation. When Elvis finally strode onto the stage, a roar erupted that threatened to shatter the very foundations of the building. He was even more matic in person than on the grainy black and white TV screen. His uniform was crisp, his smile dazzling. He launched into his first song, and the energy in the room became palpable. Men who hadn't smiled in weeks were clapping, singing along, momentarily forgetting the harsh realities of their deployment. Mark watched mesmerized like everyone else. Elvis sang "Love Me Tender," and the sentimental lyrics twisted a knot in Mark's gut. He thought of Sarah, their wedding dance, the quiet evenings curled up on the sofa. He could almost hear her humming along, her voice light and sweet. He closed his eyes for a moment, letting the music wash over him, letting it transport him back just for a second. Then an idea, wild and audacious, sparked in his mind. It was so outlandish, so impossibly whole, that it made his heart pound against his ribs. He was just a private Elvis Presley. He was Surrey, was well. He looked at the stage again, at Elvis, bathed in the spotlight, his face etched with a genuine warmth as he looked out at the sea of soldiers. He wasn't just a performer, he was one of them, serving his country just like them. That thought ignited a fragile ember of courage within Mark. He imagined Sarah's face, if it actually happened, her shock, her disbelief, and then the pure, unadulterated joy. It would be a story she'd tell for the rest of her life, a moment of magic in a time filled with worry. It would remind her in a profound and unforgettable way that even across an ocean, even in the midst of war, she was loved, cherished, and unforgettable. The thought of her smile, the one captured in the photograph he still held tight in his pocket, was all the motivation he needed. He knew it was a long shot, a near impossibility. But what if he didn't try? He would forever wonder. As the final notes of the song faded and Elvis moved on to a more upbeat number, Mark started to weave his way through the crowd, his eyes fixed on the side of the stage where a small door led backstage. He wasn't sure how he'd do it, what he'd say, or if he'd even get close. But he had to try, for Sarah, for the smile he missed more than anything in the world. The warmth of that picture against his palm was a silent encouragement, pushing him forward into the unknown. The roar of the crowd was deafening, but Mark barely registered it as he squeezed past shoulders and stumbled over feet. He kept his eyes on the backstage door, a beacon in the pulsating hall. When the show finally ended, the applause was thunderous, an outpouring of gratitude and adoration. Elvis waved, blew kisses, and then, with a final dazzling smile, disappeared behind the curtain. Mark knew this was his only chance. The crowd began to disperse, a river of tired but exhilarated men flowing towards the exit. Mark, however, pushed against the current, making his way towards the stage. A burly military policeman stood guard near the backstage entrance, his expression unyielding. "Excuse me, Private," the MP said, his voice deep and authoritative. "Area's restricted. Show's over." Just as Mark's hope began to falter, a softer voice cut in. "What's the trouble, Private?" Mark turned to see a man standing beside the MP, dressed in a sharp suit. He looked like one of Elvis's entourage, perhaps a manager or assistant. He had kind eyes, but an air of quiet authority. "Sir, I'm Private Mark Miller," Mark said, standing a little straighter. "I know this sounds crazy, but I was hoping Mr. Presley might be willing to do something for my wife. She's back home in the States." The man crossed his arms. "And what exactly would that be?" Mark took a deep breath, pushing past his embarrassment. "She's been having a tough time, sir. With me being away, phone calls are rare, and the connection is usually terrible. I was thinking if he could just say hello to her on the phone, or maybe even sing a line or two, just to let her know she's not forgotten." The man looked at Mark, a flicker of something in his eyes. Pity, consideration. Mark couldn't tell. "Mr. Presley has a lot of demands on his time, son, and a long night ahead." "Please, sir," Mark pleaded, his voice cracking slightly. "I wouldn't ask if it wasn't truly important. She's my anchor. She keeps me going out here." Pulled out the worn photograph of Sarah, again holding it out. "Look at her, sir. She deserves something special." The man glanced at the photo, then back at Mark's earnest, pleading face. He sighed a slow exhalation. "All right, Private. No promises. Mr. Presley is usually exhausted after a show, but come with me. You can wait here while I go ask. If he says no, you leave without a fuss. Understood?" "Understood. Thank you." Mark's heart hammered against his ribs. This was more than he could have hoped for. The man led him through the backstage door, which opened into a maze of dimly lit corridors. They stopped outside a door marked with a star. Muffled voices could be heard from within. "Wait here," the man instructed, then disappeared inside. Mark stood there, rigid with nerves, listening to the muffled sounds from beyond the door. What if Elvis was busy? What if he was tired? What if he just laughed at the absurdity of the request? The thoughts swirled, making him lightheaded. Gripped the photo of Sarah tighter, drawing strength from it. Minutes stretched into an eternity. Mark felt sweat prickle on his forehead despite the cool air in the hallway. He practiced what he'd say to Sarah, how he'd introduce Elvis, just in case. His mind raced, imagining the perfect scenario, then crashing down to the likely reality of disappointment. Then the door opened. The man from before emerged, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Mr. Presley will see you, Private, but be quick. He's got another engagement soon." Mark's jaw nearly dropped. He hadn't dared to hope. He nodded vigorously, unable to speak, and followed the man into the room. The room was surprisingly simple. A dressing room that smelled faintly of stage makeup and sweat. Elvis Presley sat on a folding chair, a towel draped around his neck, sipping from a glass of water. He looked tired, but his eyes, when they met Mark's, were warm and surprisingly gentle. "Heard you had a special request, Private?" Elvis said, his voice deeper, more relaxed than it was on stage. Mark snapped to attention, feeling a flush creep up his neck. "Yes, sir. Mr. Presley, sir. My name is Mark Miller. It's about my wife, Sarah. She's back home. I know this is a lot to ask, but..." Trailed off suddenly, overwhelmed by the enormity of the moment. Elvis smiled, a soft, encouraging smile that seemed to melt away Mark's nervousness. "Relax, Private. You're among friends. What can I do for your lady?" "She's been feeling really down, sir," Mark blurted out, finding his voice again. "It's tough on the wives back home. If you could just for a moment just say hello to her over the phone. Or maybe a line of a song. Anything. It would lift her spirits like nothing else could." "He's a huge fan." Elvis took another sip of water, his gaze thoughtful. He looked at Mark for a long moment, truly seeing him, seeing the worry and the love in his eyes. Then he stood up, tossing the towel aside. "Well, Private," he said, a twinkle in his eye, "let's make a call then, shall we?" "You got her number." Mark stared, momentarily stunned. It was happening. It was actually happening. "Yes, sir, I have it right here." He fumbled for his wallet, pulling out a small slip of paper with Sarah's number, his hand shaking slightly. The king of rock and roll was going to call his wife. The impossible had just become real. Mark's fingers trembled slightly as he dialed Sarah's number on the rotary phone provided in Elvis's dressing room. It was a bulky military-issue phone designed for secure long-distance communication, but it felt impossibly fragile in his hands. Elvis stood nearby watching him, a patient smile on his face. The manager had quietly left the room, giving them a moment of privacy. She might not be home. "Sir," Mark warned, his voice a little shaky. It's late morning there, I think." He mentally calculated the time difference. He hoped she was there, maybe doing laundry or tending to her small garden or just sitting by the window, thinking of him. Each click of the rotary dial seemed to echo loudly in the hushed room. The faint static on the line was a familiar sound, a constant reminder of the vast distance between them. Mark held the receiver to his ear, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. He heard the distant, muffled ringing. One ring, two, three. Every second felt like an eternity. On the other side of the world, in a small house nestled in a quiet American suburb, Sarah Miller was indeed home. She was kneading dough on her kitchen counter, the scent of yeast and flour filling the air. Her mind, as always, was a million miles away somewhere in Germany with Mark. She often found solace in routine, in the simple acts of homemaking that made her feel connected to the life they had built together. The phone rang, startling her. She wiped her flour-dusted hands on her apron and hurried to answer it, her heart giving a hopeful lurch. It was rare for Mark to call. Most calls came from her mother, or her best friend, Mary. "Hello," Sarah said, her voice a little breathless. "Sarah, is that you?" Mark's voice, though a little distorted by the transatlantic connection, was instantly recognizable. Her breath hitched. "Mark, oh my goodness, Mark, is everything okay? I wasn't expecting." Relief washed over her so potent, it made her knees feel weak. It wasn't an emergency call from his command, it was him. "Everything's fine, sweetheart, everything's great," Mark said, a note of excitement she rarely heard in his voice. I wanted to call you. I'm actually with someone very special here." Sarah frowned, a puzzled expression on her face. "Someone special? Who, honey? Is it one of your buddies?" She tried to imagine which of Mark's army friends would want to talk to her. "Maybe Sergeant Johnson," always a friendly voice. No, it's not a buddy," Mark chuckled, a sound of pure joy. Someone you really admire. Someone who's a huge star here." He paused, a dramatic flair that was so unlike him. "Sarah, I have Elvis Presley here, and he wants to say hello to you." Silence. A long, stunned silence on Sarah's end. She half laughed, a disbelieving sound. "Mark, are you serious? You're teasing me, aren't you? Is this some kind of prank?" Her mind raced Elvis Presley in Germany, and he wanted to talk to her. It sounded like a fever dream. Mark heard her disbelief. He glanced at Elvis, who winked and gave a small nod. "No prank, Sarah, I swear. He just finished a show for us and I got to meet him. He's right here. He's going to sing something for you, sweetheart." Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. Her heart, which had just started to calm down, now hammered against her ribs with renewed vigor. Elvis Presley singing to her. This was utterly insane. Was Mark sick? Had he finally cracked under the pressure of deployment? "Mark, what are you talking about?" she whispered, still unable to fully grasp it. "This isn't real, is it?" "It's as real as it gets, baby," Mark said, his voice full of warmth. He gently extended the receiver towards Elvis. "Here he is, Sarah. He's waiting." Elvis took the phone from Mark, his strong, warm hand brushing against Mark's. He held the receiver to his ear, his expression softening as he imagined the woman on the other end. "Hello, Sarah." Elvis's voice, rich and unmistakable, filled the silence in Sarah's kitchen. It wasn't the booming stage voice. It was softer, more personal, yet utterly captivating. Sarah nearly dropped the phone. Her knees truly buckled this time, and she sank onto a kitchen chair, clutching the receiver like a lifeline. It was him. It was really him. Her breath caught in her throat. She couldn't speak, could only manage a choked sound. "This is Elvis," he continued, a gentle chuckle in his voice. "He asked me to sing you a little something, to let you know how much he misses you." Sarah's eyes welled up with tears. It wasn't just his voice. It was the kindness, the genuine warmth in his tone. He wasn't just going through the motions. He truly seemed to care. This wasn't a prank. This was real. And it was the most incredible, heartwarming, utterly unbelievable thing that had ever happened to her. She could only manage a small, choked thank you before he began to sing. Elvis cleared his throat gently, and then, without preamble, he began to sing. His voice, warm and smooth, filled Sarah's small kitchen, crossing thousands of miles of ocean and airwaves, overcoming the crackle of the phone line. He chose "Can't Help Falling in Love," a song that was already a classic, beloved by millions, but now delivered just for her. It felt uniquely hers. Wise men say only fools rush in. But I can't help falling in love with you. Sarah listened, motionless, tears streaming silently down her face. It wasn't just the famous voice, though, that was mesmerizing enough. It was the tenderness in his tone, the way he seemed to pour genuine emotion into every word. It felt like a lullaby, a comfort, a whisper of hope in the quiet emptiness of her days. She closed her eyes, letting the melody wash over her, letting it seep into every part of her being. She imagined Mark standing there, listening too, his eyes probably closed, a proud smile on his face. She could almost feel his presence, hear his own humming next to her, as he often did when they listened to music together. The song was for her, from Elvis, but it was about her and Mark, a promise sung across the world. Shall I stay? Would it be a sin if I can't help falling in love with you? Each note was a balm to her weary soul. The worry that clung to her daily, the loneliness that sometimes felt unbearable, the gnawing anxiety about Mark's safety for these few precious moments, it all faded away. There was only the music, only the incredible, impossible kindness of a stranger, spurred by the deep love of her husband. Back in the dressing room, Mark stood utterly transfixed. He watched Elvis, who closed his eyes as he sang, his face peaceful, completely immersed in the song. It was a private concert just for Sarah, but Mark was a privileged witness. He could almost feel the connection, the invisible thread of melody stretching across the Atlantic, reaching his wife. He remembered the early days of their relationship, how Sarah would always turn up the radio when an Elvis song came on, swaying to the rhythm, her eyes sparkling. He knew how much this meant to her. More than flowers, more than chocolates, more than any letter he could write that would last forever. Elvis continued, his voice unwavering. Like a river flows surely to the sea, darling. So it goes, some things are meant to be. Mark's own eyes welled up. He swallowed hard, trying to keep his emotions in check. This man, the king of rock and roll, arguably the most famous person on the planet, was standing here, taking precious time out of his grueling schedule to sing to Mark's wife. He didn't have to. He probably got 1,000 similar requests. He was not just singing. He was sending a message of hope, of solidarity, of love that transcended distance. He was validating Mark's feelings for Sarah, acknowledging the unspoken sacrifices of military families. The verse ended, and Elvis paused, letting the final notes linger. He opened his eyes. A soft, compassionate gaze. "Sarah," he said, his voice returning to its speaking tone. gentle and reassuring. "You take care now, sweetheart, and know that Mark here, he loves you very, very much. He told me all about you. We're proud of him, and we're thinking of you back home." Sarah managed a choked sob. "Thank you, Mr. Presley," she whispered, her voice barely audible through her tears. "Thank you so much. You have no idea this means so much to me." "It's my pleasure, darling," Elvis replied, his voice full of warmth. "Keep your chin up. He'll be home before you know it." With a final encouraging word, he gently handed the phone back to Mark. Mark took the receiver, his hand shaking slightly. He could hear Sarah still crying softly on the other end. "Sarah, honey, are you okay?" "Mark," she sobbed. I can't believe it. He really did it." "Oh, Mark, thank you. Thank you, thank you." Her voice was a mixture of laughter and tears, pure unadulterated joy. "Anything for you, sweetheart," Mark said, his own voice thick with emotion. He couldn't express how much he loved her, how much he missed her. But he hoped this gesture, this incredible gift, would convey it better than any words. He knew in that moment that he had just given her the most beautiful, comforting gift she could ever receive. He spoke to her for a few more minutes, reassuring her, soaking in her happiness before the line crackled and they had to say their goodbyes. Hanging up, Mark felt a lightness in his chest he hadn't experienced in months. It was a feeling of pure, unburdened joy, a direct result of that impossible serenade. The moment the phone clicked dead, Sarah sat motionless, the receiver still pressed to her ear. The silence in her kitchen was profound, yet it resonated with the lingering echo of Elvis Presley's voice. She slowly lowered the phone, placing it gently back into its cradle, as if it were a fragile, precious back. Her hands were shaking. Tears still streamed down her face, but they were no longer tears of sadness or longing. They were tears of pure, overwhelming joy and disbelief. She looked around her familiar kitchen, the sun streaming through the window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. It all seemed impossibly ordinary after such an extraordinary event. Had it really happened? Had Elvis Presley truly just sung "Can't Help Falling in Love" to her? Over the phone, she pressed her hands to her cheeks, still wet with tears. The memory was so vivid, so real. The warmth in his voice, the gentle cadence of the lyrics, his words of encouragement. It wasn't a dream. Mark wouldn't play such a cruel trick. She stood up, still feeling a little wobbly. Her first impulse was to tell someone. Anyone, but who would believe her? Her neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, a sweet but pragmatic woman, would probably think she'd finally succumbed to the stress of Mark's absence. Her mother, bless her heart, would likely worry about her mental state. Still, the story felt too big to keep to herself. She had to share it. She grabbed her car keys, her mind already racing. Her best friend Mary was the only one who might understand Mary, who loved a good story and had always admired Elvis. 10 minutes later, Sarah burst into Mary. Mary looked up from her knitting, surprised. "Sarah, what on earth? You look like you've seen a ghost." "Better than a ghost?" Sarah exclaimed, practically vibrating with excitement. "Mary, you are not going to believe what just happened." Mary raised an eyebrow, putting down her knitting. "Try me." And so Sarah launched into the tale, stumbling over her words at first, then finding a smoother rhythm as the retelling solidified the unbelievable event in her own mind. She described Mark's call, his playful introduction, her own disbelief. And then the moment Elvis's voice came through the line, she recounted the song, the tenderness in his voice, his kind words. Mary listened, her jaw slowly dropping. Her eyes grew wider and wider. When Sarah finished, the room was silent for a beat. "You're kidding me," Mary finally whispered. Her voice filled with awe. "Elvis Presley sang to you, over the phone, from Germany." "Yes," Sarah practically shouted, "doesn't it?" Mary didn't laugh. She didn't doubt. She just stared at Sarah, a look of profound wonder on her face. "Sarah, that's the most incredible thing I've ever heard. Your Mark. He's a miracle worker. And Elvis, My goodness, what a kind soul. Telling Mary made it feel even more real, more tangible. It was no longer just her private, unbelievable experience. It was a shared wonder. Later that evening, after Mary had gone home, still buzzing with excitement, Sarah sat by the window. A cup of tea warming her hands. The initial shock had subsided, replaced by a deep, quiet contentment. Life hadn't magically changed. Mark was still thousands of miles away. The laundry still needed to be done, the bills still needed to be paid, and the news reports from overseas were still grim. But something fundamental within her had shifted. The phone call wasn't just a celebrity encounter. It was a profound act of love from her husband, a testament to his determination to reach out and touch her heart, even from afar. It was a reminder that even in the vastness of the world, even amidst the chaos of war, there were moments of pure, unadulterated beauty and kindness. That song, "Can't Help Falling in Love," would forever be etched in her memory, not just as Elvis's hit, but as their song. A song sung just for her, a melody that bridged an ocean, a moment of magic that dissolved a loneliness, if only for a little while. It was a secret weapon against the dark days, a bright shining memory she could pull out and relive whenever the ache for Mark became too much. It was a symbol of hope, a reminder that love truly could conquer all, even distance, even war with a little help from the king. After hanging up the phone, Mark stood for a moment, the receiver still warm in his hand. A wide, almost goofy smile plastered across his face. He felt like he was floating a lightness in his chest that had been absent for months. The weight of worry, the constant ache of missing Sarah, had momentarily lifted, replaced by a surge of pure, unadulterated joy. Elvis, who had been observing him with a kind smile, walked over. She sounded happy. "Private Miller," he said, his voice soft. "She was, sir," Mark managed, his voice thick with emotion. "She was absolutely thrilled. Thank you, Mr. Presley. I don't know how to thank you enough. You have no idea what this means to her, to us." Elvis put a hand on Mark's shoulder, a firm, comforting gesture. "Don't you worry about it, son. It's nothing, just a small thing. You boys are out here doing the real work. The least I can do is bring a little joy where I can." He looked at Mark, his famous blue eyes filled with genuine empathy. "It's hard, isn't it? Being away from home, from the ones you love?" Mark nodded, swallowed hard. "Yes, sir. It's the hardest part." "I know," Elvis said, his voice a little wistful. "I miss my folks, my home, but you gotta keep your chin up and remember what you're fighting for. For the folks like Sarah back home." He squeezed Mark's shoulder. "That kind of love, Private. That's what makes it all worthwhile. Never forget that." He then gave Mark a quick, warm smile, a nod of understanding, and turned to speak to his manager, who had just re-entered the room. "All right, Bob, let's get going. We've got a plane to catch." Mark felt a lump in his throat. Elvis, the global superstar, had just treated him like a peer, a comrade in arms, not just a random fan. He had offered genuine comfort and shared a moment of quiet understanding. It wasn't just the song for Sarah, it was a small personal interaction that left an indelible mark on Mark. He left the dressing room, the sounds of Elvis and his entourage preparing to leave echoing behind him. He walked through the emptying hall, the scent of stale popcorn and lingering perfume filling the air. Other soldiers were still filing out, some talking excitedly about the show, others already lost in their own thoughts of home. Mark barely noticed them. His mind was replaying the call, Sarah's stunned silence, her choked sobs of joy, her effusive thanks. Pictured her face beaming, telling Mary the unbelievable story. He knew this moment, the singular act of kindness, would be a lifeline for her. A burst of sunshine in the long gray days of his deployment. As he walked back to the barracks, the cold German air felt less biting. The barracks, usually a place of quiet despair and restless energy, suddenly seemed a little brighter. He knew the challenges weren't over. There would still be drills, still be long nights, still be the constant ache of absence, But now he had a new source of strength. He had given Sarah something truly extraordinary, and in doing so, he had given himself a powerful shot of hope. The word spread like wildfire through Mark's company the next morning. It started with whispers, then became full-blown declarations. "Did you hear about Private Miller Elvis?" himself called his wife. Disbelief, awe, and a touch of envy rippled through the ranks. "You're kidding, right?" Sergeant Davies, a gruff but fair man, scoffed when he heard it. "Elvis doesn't just call up privates' wives." "He did, Sarge," said Private Johnson, who had seen Mark coming out of the backstage area. Mark said he sang to her too. When confronted, Mark, initially shy about sharing such a personal moment, confirmed the story, albeit with a humble grin. He showed them the slip of paper with Sarah's number, now a relic of an impossible dream. Come true. The reactions were priceless. Jaws dropped, eyes widened. A few men even slapped him on the back. "Well, Sarge Davies said, shaking his head in wonder, "the king himself. What a guy." The incident did more than just boost Mark's morale. It sent a ripple through the entire company. It was a reminder that even in the vast machinery of the military, even for ordinary soldiers like them, there were moments of human connection, of unexpected kindness. It was a story of hope, a tale of love transcending distance, and a testament to the generous spirit of a man who is more than just a celebrity. It made every soldier feel a little more seen, a little more valued. If Elvis cared enough to do that for one of them, maybe they weren't so forgotten after all. Mark felt a newfound sense of purpose. He hadn't just made Sarah happy. He had, in a small way, brought a glimmer of magic to his entire unit. The story of Elvis Presley singing to Private Mark Miller's wife wasn't just a fleeting rumor. It became a legend within the military base. It spread from the barracks to the mess hall, from one company to another, echoing through the corridors of command. The story, like all good tales, gained a little extra flourish with each retelling, but its core truth remained unwavering. Elvis did it. For many soldiers, it wasn't just a fun anecdote. It was a symbol of home, of the love they'd left behind, and of the surprising kindness that could emerge even in the most unlikely circumstances. Life in the military, especially overseas, was hard. It was monotonous, dangerous, and lonely. Small acts of recognition, a letter from home, a care package could make a world of difference. An act like this, it was like a lifeline. It sparked conversations in the chow line. Soldiers, usually stoic and reserved, found themselves opening up, sharing stories about their own wives, their mothers, their sweethearts. "My girlfriend loves Elvis," one private confided to Mark. "She'd probably faint if he sang to her." Another, a seasoned corporal with a perpetually weary look, admitted, "My wife, she's been struggling with the kids. It would make her weak." Mark, once a quiet, unassuming private, found himself at the center of attention. He answered questions patiently, recounting the details of the call. Elvis's kind words, Sarah's reaction. He didn't boast. He simply shared the wonder of the experience. And in doing so, he became a conduit for a shared feeling of hope. The commanding officers, initially skeptical, soon recognized the immense morale boost the incident had provided. A small article even appeared in the base newsletter, a brief heartwarming piece about the famous singer's gesture. It didn't make national news, but within the confines of the base, it was bigger than any headline. Private Miller, his platoon sergeant, a grizzled veteran named Sergeant Brooks, said one afternoon, pulling Mark aside, "Heard about that phone call, good on you, son. And good on Elvis. You know, these little things, they matter. They keep the spirit up. Don't underestimate the power of a kind gesture." Sergeant Brooks, known for his tough demeanor, seemed genuinely moved. It was a rare glimpse into the humanity beneath the hardened exterior. It showed Mark that everyone, no matter their rank or their toughness, was affected by the human connection, by the longing for home, beyond the immediate impact on the bass, the ripple effect also touched Elvis himself. While he rarely spoke publicly about such private acts, his close circle knew. They saw the quiet satisfaction he took from moments like these. It reminded him that his fame wasn't just about records and concerts. It was about connecting with people, offering comfort, and using his unique gift to bring joy. It reinforced his belief in the importance of humility and service values instilled in him from his humble beginnings and further strengthened by his time in the Army. For Mark, the change was profound. He felt a renewed sense of purpose, not just in his duties as a soldier, but in his personal life. He had always loved Sarah fiercely, but this incident had deepened that love, giving it a tangible expression that transcended words. He had been able to do something truly extraordinary for her, something that would forever be a part of their story. The memory of the phone call became a constant source of strength. During difficult drills, during long, lonely nights, Mark would close his eyes and hear Elvis's voice singing, "Can't Help Falling in Love." He would picture Sarah, her face illuminated by joy, and he would feel a surge of warmth. It was a promise of a future, a reminder of the love waiting for him back home. He started writing Sarah longer, more detailed letters describing the base, his daily life, the camaraderie with his fellow soldiers. He knew she was now reading them with a renewed spirit bolstered by that incredible, magical phone call. He also started looking forward to mail call, more than ever eager for her next letter, hoping it would contain more details about her reaction, about how the news was received by their families, about the lasting glow of that unexpected serenade. He imagined her telling the story to everyone she met, her eyes shining with excitement, and a quiet pride swelled in his chest. This single, selfless act of kindness from a global icon had done more than just entertain. It had woven a thread of hope and connection through the lives of many, reminding them that even in times of separation and hardship, love and humanity could still find a way to shine through. Mail call was always the highlight of the day for Mark Miller. It was a tangible link to the world he'd left behind, a lifeline thrown across the vast expanse of the Atlantic. Most days, it brought him routine updates from his mother or a newspaper clipping from his hometown. But since the Elvis call, his anticipation for Sarah's letters had become almost unbearable. Today, as Sergeant Brooks handed him a thick envelope, Mark's heart did a little leap. It was Sarah's familiar, elegant handwriting on the front. He quickly retreated to his bunk, eager to devour every word in private. He tore open the envelope, his fingers fumbling in his haste. Inside, there wasn't just a letter, but also a small, slightly crumpled newspaper clipping. He unfolded the clipping first. It was from their local town paper, a small piece tucked away on page 3, titled, "Local Soldier's Wife Gets Royal Serenade." The article was short, but it detailed the phone call. Sarah's reaction and mentioned Elvis Presley by name. Sarah had underlined his name multiple times in blue ink. Mark grinned. Could just imagine her pride, her excitement, sharing her unbelievable story with a local reporter. This wasn't just a private moment anymore. It was a testament to their love etched in newsprint. Then he turned to the letter, which was several pages long, written on her favorite floral stationery. "My dearest Mark, I still can't believe it happened. I truly can't. Every time I think about it, I get goosebumps. When you first said you had someone special, I thought maybe it was one of your officers, maybe someone who knew my family. But Elvis, Mark, you absolutely stunned me." My heart nearly leaped out of my chest when I heard his voice. It was so kind, so gentle, and the song, "Can't Help Falling in Love." It was perfect. I just stood there. Well, I sank into a chair, actually crying my eyes out. It wasn't sad crying, honey. It was happy crying. Like all the stress and worry just melted away for a few minutes. He told me to keep my chin up, and he said you told him all about me, Mark. What did you tell him? Mark chuckled, remembering his brief, fumbling attempt to explain how much Sarah meant to him. I immediately called. Mary, of course, she didn't believe me at first. She kept saying, "Are you sure you weren't dreaming, Sarah?" But then she heard the conviction in my voice, and she just started screaming. We probably woke up half the neighborhood. She insists that Now Can't Help Falling in Love is officially our song. She's already requested it at the diner's jukebox. A dozen times Mom and Dad were completely flabbergasted. Dad actually dropped his coffee cup when I told him. They keep telling everyone they meet, the mailman, the cashier at the grocery store, even the lady at the dry cleaner. I think everyone in town knows about it now, which is why I sent you the newspaper clipping. It was a very small article, but it was still incredible to see it in print. The feeling it left me with Mark, it's hard to describe. It's like a shield. Whenever I feel lonely or worried or just plain sad, I close my eyes and I can hear his voice. It reminds me of your love, of how much you miss me and how far you'll go to make me smile. It makes the distance feel a little less vast, a little less daunting. It's like a secret weapon against the blues, honey. And it's all thanks to you. You are the most thoughtful, amazing husband in the world. I tell everyone that you always find a way to make things brighter. Life here is still pretty quiet, but this truly was the highlight of my entire year. And know that you are always, always in my heart. Tell Elvis thank you again if you ever see him. All my love forever and always, your Sarah. Mark finished reading, a profound warmth spreading through him. He reread the letter several times, savoring each word. Her happiness radiated from the page. He folded the letter carefully, tucking it back into the envelope along with the newspaper clipping. He felt an immense sense of satisfaction. Knowing he had made such a difference for her, the story of the call didn't just fade away with time. Sometimes during the general's visits or during VIP events on base, Elvis would occasionally make an appearance. Though it was rare whenever he did, there was a palpable buzz, and Mark would often catch his eye across the room. Elvis would offer a small, almost imperceptible nod, and a warm smile, a silent acknowledgement of their shared secret, of the beautiful moment they had created together. It was a reminder that genuine kindness leaves a lasting imprint, a quiet understanding between two people, regardless of their status. The letter was a powerful reinforcement of that. It wasn't just a simple act of charity from a celebrity. It was a pivotal moment in their shared history, a testament to the enduring power of their love and a beacon of hope that shone brightly. Through the dark, days bled into hours, and suddenly Mark found himself packing his duffel bag for the last time. The barracks, once filled with the tension of departure, now buzzed with the eager anticipation of return. His tour of duty was finally over. The feeling was surreal, a mix of relief, elation, and a nervous excitement that made his stomach flutter. He'd said his goodbyes to his comrades, the men he'd shared triumphs and hardships, with forging bonds that would last a lifetime. Sergeant Brooks, gruff as ever, had simply clapped him on the shoulder. "Good luck, Miller. Give your wife a big hug for us all." The journey home was long and tedious, but Mark barely noticed. Every mile, every hour, brought him closer to Sarah. He spent the time replaying memories, their wedding day, quiet evenings, curled up on the sofa. And of course, that extraordinary phone call. He wondered if Sarah still thought about it as often as he did, if she still pulled out the newspaper clipping he knew she'd saved. Meanwhile, back home, Sarah was a whirlwind of activity. The house, always neat, was now sparkling. Fresh flowers adorned the kitchen table, and the aroma of Mark's favorite apple pie wafted through the air. She had spent weeks preparing, buying his favorite foods, picking out his most comfortable clothes, making sure every detail was perfect for his return. The days leading up to his arrival had been a blur of nervous energy. Every time the phone rang, she expected it to be him, telling her he was at the airport. Every car that slowed down on their street made her heart leap. She had marked the calendar, crossed off each day with a trembling hand. Mary had been over nearly every day, helping her, clean, offering advice, and sharing in her excitement. "You're going to squeeze him so hard he won't know what hit him," Mary teased. But her eyes were wet with understanding. They both knew the immense sacrifice Mark had made, and the quiet strength Sarah had shown in his absence. The memory of the Elvis call had indeed been a powerful shield against the blues. Whenever loneliness threatened to overwhelm her, she would hum "Can't Help Falling in Love" and visualize that moment. The sheer absurdity and beauty of it. It had been a vivid, tangible reminder of Mark's unwavering love. A story that felt like a fairy tale in their otherwise ordinary lives. Finally, the call came. "I'm here, sweetheart." Mark's voice, raspy with exhaustion but burning with emotion, filled her ear. "Just landed. I'm taking the shuttle now. I'll be there in about an hour." "An hour? Oh, Mark." Tears instantly sprang to her eyes. "I can't wait. I'm so ready for you to be home." The next 60 minutes crawled by at a glacial pace. Sarah paced the house, checked her appearance in the mirror a dozen times, adjusted the flowers on the table. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it might burst to her chest. Then she heard it. The familiar rumble of a taxi pulling up outside. She raced to the window, her breath catching in her throat. He was there, Mark. In his uniform, a duffel bag at his feet, standing on their porch. He looked tired. Older somehow, but utterly, wonderfully real. She threw the door open, not bothering with the coat, despite the crisp autumn air. "Mark," she cried, her voice choked with emotion. He dropped his bag and opened his arms, a wide, relieved smile spreading across his face. "Sarah," she launched herself into his embrace, wrapping her arms tightly around his neck, burying her face in his shoulder. The scent of him, the familiar smell of his skin mixed with the crisp scent of his uniform, filled her senses. It was home. He was home. They held each other for a long, silent moment, the world outside fading away. No words were needed. The years of longing, the months of separation, the worry, the fear, it all dissipated in the warmth of that embrace. Finally, Mark pulled back slightly, his hands cupping her face. His eyes, though tired, were full of love and unshed tears. "You're real," he whispered, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. "You're really here." Sarah laughed, a tearful, joyous sound. "And so are you. Oh, Mark, I missed you so much." He kissed her, then a long, tender kiss that conveyed all the unspoken words, all the loneliness and longing of their time apart. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathless, their eyes shining. Did you really think I'd come home without bringing you the king's regards?" Mark teased softly, a playful glint in his eye. Sarah's smile widened, a mischievous sparkle in her own eyes. "I think you did even better, Private Miller. You brought him straight to me, thousands of miles away. That's a story for the ages." They stepped inside, hand in hand, ready to start their lives anew together. The memory of the phone call, the impossible serenade, was not just a story, but a cherished part of their shared history, a testament to the enduring power of love and the unexpected kindness that can bridge any distance. They spent countless hours simply being together, rediscovering the comfortable rhythm of their shared life. They walked hand in hand through their neighborhood, went to their favorite diner, and simply sat on the porch swing, talking for hours. Mark recounted stories from his time in Germany, the camaraderie with his fellow soldiers, the challenges of military life. Sarah, in turn, shared all the little details of her life back home, the garden, the neighborhood gossip, the quiet moments of missing him, and of course the Elvis story came up again. And again it started subtly. Sarah's mother, visiting for dinner. "Mark, tell me again exactly. What did you say to Mr. Presley?" Mark would smile, a familiar twinkle in his eye. "Well, Mom, I just told him how much I missed Sarah and how much she loved his music. And he offered, and he sang 'Can't Help Falling in Love.'" Sarah would interject, her eyes wide with wonder, even after telling the story 100 times. "Just for me." It was the most beautiful sound. That song had indeed become their song. Whenever they heard it on the radio or saw a movie where it played, they would exchange a knowing glance, a soft smile. It was a private memory, shared only by them and the king himself. It was a melody that brought back the feeling of that incredible moment, the impossible connection, across an ocean. One evening, Mark found Sarah looking at the framed newspaper clipping on the kitchen wall, her expression thoughtful. "Still can't quite believe it, can you?" he murmured, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. She leaned back into his embrace. "No, not really. It feels like a dream sometimes. But then I look at this." She touched the framed clipping. "And I know it was real. It was the most incredible thing you could have done for me, Mark. It really helped of her head. You deserved it, sweetheart. You're the strongest woman I know, dealing with everything back home." "It wasn't just the song, you know," Sarah said softly, turning in his arms to face him. "It was the thought behind it. Went to all that trouble, risking getting turned down just to lift my spirits. That's what really mattered. It was a reminder of how much you love me, and that no distance could ever change that." Mark smiled, his aura, "You're my anchor always." Their life settled back into a comfortable rhythm. Mark found a good job, and they started talking about expanding their little family. The war, though still present in the world, slowly faded into the background of their daily lives. The scars of separation remained, but they were softened by the strength of their reunion and the enduring power of their love. Years passed. Elvis Presley remained a legendary figure, his music continuing to inspire generation. And for Mark and Sarah Miller, he was more than just a musical icon. He was a symbol of unexpected kindness, a testament to the power of a human connection that transcended fame and distance. Their story, the one about the king and the phone call, became a cherished family legend, recounted at gatherings, passed down to their children. It wasn't a dramatic tale of heroism on the battlefield, but a quiet, heartwarming story of love, perseverance, and the extraordinary lengths a husband would go to for his wife, aided by the unexpected generosity of a legendary figure. It was a reminder that even in the most challenging times, moments of pure magic could emerge, sparked by simple kindness and fueled by an unbreakable love. And every time Can't Help Falling in Love played somewhere in their home, a quiet, knowing smile would spread across Mark and Sarah's faces, a testament to the song that had once bridged an ocean and brought their hearts a little closer long together.